We've been working really hard on Medallia since our refit. Putting the big foils in was a big change, and all around the boat there are implications, and in the last 2 months we've kind of been refining the end of the refit, putting some little tweaks on to make sure that the boat is ready for the 5 weeks I'm going to be racing it across the Atlantic and back. So let's just look at a couple of the things that we've done. So up on the foredeck here, we've got underneath here, this is our structural stay. So underneath here is my J2. This is kind of my working jib. Now it took quite a battering last year and through training at the beginning of this year. So we've actually got a new one of those under this cover. Up on the bowsprit there, we've now got a 2 tack line system. We never had that before, but that should make it easier for me to change sails while I'm racing. Moving back this way, you can see here, these lines here, so these are new since the refit, these are our foil down lines. So this is the system that actually pulls the foils out of the boat and holds them down, which allows me to fly. Slightly different from other boats because we're running this on deck. And the idea with that was that if there are any problems and I'm solo, it's much easier for me to see these lines and also to make repairs or adjustments to them underway. But because they're on deck, we discovered that we were having some problems when there was a lot of water over the deck. We were finding that these lines, if they were loose, were flying over the hatch here, and then when you take them under tension, they had the possibility of ripping the hatch off. So you can see here we've made this little modification just with some pad eyes, Dyneema string, and then the protective hose. And this is to keep these foil lines from washing over the deck and catching over the hatch. The eagle-eyed amongst you might realise that our forehatch has moved as well. So previously our forehatch was dead in the middle, about there, but because of the new foil structure under here, we had to move it to slightly off centre. So the foil cases are actually here now. We've moved the foil hatch off centre, which makes it slightly more difficult for me to get sails in and out. But it's kind of the only place that we could have had this hatch in place. And you'll see here these little tags that we've added. So one thing we've learned is there is a massive volume of water coming over the deck now when the boat's flying, and it's powerful. And as the boat was bouncing along, I was finding that these hatch handles were working their way open. So actually we've got these little tags on the inside, and the idea is once we're going in big weather, we can actually tie this hatch down from underneath to make sure that nothing untoward happens. Back this way, we haven't really changed anything with the mast. It's still the same wing mast, just kind of everything serviced. We had our standing rigging serviced over the winter, and all of that is looking good. If we come back this way, so you can see now we have solar panels on the coach roof. This again was something new for this year. Now it's important that we have multiple means of generating power, especially when we're thinking forward to what the Vendée Globe looks like. So my 3 means of generating power now are the solar panels. So there's some on the top there, and you can see there's other panels on the part that slides out. I have hydro generators that we push down under the boat, and they're kind of like internal turbines. So water funnels in through the boat, turns the impellers inside and generates power. And then I also have the standard alternator, which I run off my main engine. When we're racing, of course, the engine is sealed. So that's just sealing the gearbox. It means I can't put it into gear, but I can have the engine in neutral so that I can generate power using the alternator. On the back here, so this is a new addition for us, this shelf. One of the things that I found really challenging last year was moving the sails around alone, trying to get the best performance, moving them in the right place. And partly it was because we had fabric ramps here to get the sails from one side to the other. I was having to move them over a fabric ramp, and basically kind of, if you drop the sail, it kind of dug in places, and you actually had to physically lift it to move it to the other side. This ramp just allows me to slide sails straight across, but it's also provided another surface on which I can stack the sails to keep the bow up. So I'm absolutely loving this modification. It's brilliant. And then in the middle here, underneath here, this is another test for us. So we use satellite systems for our communication while we're offshore. Our main system there is the Iridium Certus, but underneath here is a Starlink antenna, and we're trialling this on the Atlantic to see how much time we can connect to a satellite and how useful it is, again with a view to thinking about what our backup systems or our main systems are going to look like for the Vendée Globe. Okay, stepping down into the cockpit. This is all pretty familiar. We did a lot of work in the cockpit area last year, and haven't really needed to change anything major since the refit. Just kind of refining. Obviously, we're always working with our technical partners to make sure that we are upgrading the specifications of things. We're keeping on top of our maintenance. So we've been working quite hard with Marlow ropes. So these are the foil up lines and these are the foil down lines. These are under a massive amount of tension. So we've been working quite hard with them to work out what the right cover should be on them and how we can make sure that they grip into the jammers and stay there. The other modification that's been made is to this top bracket here on my pedestal. So this part here we've had re-engineered by a company called Stay in Phase, who basically kind of took out all of the slackness in it, which means that when I'm grinding here, it's a much more direct transfer of my power to the winch. And all of those tiny little things really make a difference. Just kind of making sure that we have minimal losses through friction, through kind of loose things, so that my energy goes further. So let's pop down below. So we are still in race preparation mode, so it's a little bit messy. That's a warning for you. Again, not a massive amount has changed down here. So this is still my main living area. We've got the water ballast on each side, and you can see the transfer pipe coming here. We added a system to fill the aft water ballast tanks from the forward scoops earlier in the year. So that means a bit of extra piping running down the side here and a couple of extra valves, and that seems to be working well. This is a significant change. So the foils, you're allowed to change the rake. Now the rake is the angle between the tip of the foil and the hull of the boat. So effectively you can move the tip forward or move it aft, and that allows you to lift the bow more aggressively out of the water. Previously, the hydraulic pump that I used to move those foils was right forward on the bulkhead here, but now we've moved it to just beside the main hatch, which is a lot more user-friendly. But we've also had to put a handle in up here, because kind of standing here when you're bouncing along trying to pump the handle, you definitely needed a way of bracing yourself. And actually that's one of the things that kind of almost every time I've been out training, I've come back in and said, either I want some protection on something because I was worried about hitting my head, or I want more grab handles. So you see there's grab handles against the bulkhead there, we've got them underneath there, all the way through the boat. I'm looking for how I'm going to move through the boat safely, because when we're doing speeds in excess of 27, 28 knots and the boat is bouncing along, you absolutely 100% have to be holding on. My luxury item is an absolutely giant beanbag, which is down there. Again, this is kind of a reflection on how much the boat bounces. I was finding that the smaller bean bags that we had, I was kind of bouncing through the beams and then ending up being able to feel the beams or the pipes on my back underneath me. So we've got a mega bean bag to try for the next 5 weeks, and the hope is that I'm not going to squash the beans too much in that, and it will give me a reasonably comfortable place to sleep.